Okay.
So recording is in progress, and we will start our monthly roundtable discussion for the Council for Strategic Affairs. Today's topic is managing India-U.S. defense relations, and we are very fortunate to have our state senator from Ohio, Senator Niraj Antani, lead the discussion. I will, before going on to the giving the floor to the senator, I'll briefly introduce Council for Strategic Affairs. Council for Strategic Affairs imparts education in the field of international relations. It fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. CSA encourages strategic studies in general to raise awareness of the masses. CSA also aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. So our activities include a monthly roundtable discussion that happens on third Monday of every month at 8 p.m. We usually have a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert. We also organize symposia, meetings, and conferences. We also promote publications of articles on geopolitics and related subjects. So today's topic is managing U.S. defense relations, India-U.S. defense relations. And we have our distinguished speaker. I will give a brief introduction. So Senator Niraj Antani is serving his first term in the Ohio Senate. He represents the 6th district, which is basically Montgomery County. He was the youngest member of the Ohio House at age 23. And he carried this on by being the youngest Ohio State Senator at age 29. Uh, he is the first Indian American state senator to join Ohio Senate in the history of Ohio. And I'm pretty sure there will be many more firsts to come. For all you know that in 2 years' time, State Senator Antani might be United States Senator because we have an open seat coming up in 2 years' time. Or for all we know, he might be Governor of Ohio and eventually first Indian American President of the United States. So our goal is very wide. He served as actually state representative from 42nd House District in Ohio from 2014 to 2020 for a period of 6 years. He was the second Indian American state elected official in history of Ohio and first Indian American Republican. While he was in the House, he served as vice chairman of the Rules and Reference Committee and as vice chairman of the Committee on Insurance, as well as member of the Committee on Health, Committee on Public Utilities, and Joint Medicaid Oversight Committee. During the 2012 presidential campaign for Mitt Romney, Senator Antani worked for Ohio's state director and as senior advisor to the campaign. He has also worked in various other, congressional campaigns as a young volunteer. He was named to the Forbes magazine list of top under 30 people in the United States for law and politics as early as 2015. The conservative media organization Newsmax named him as the second most influential Republican in the nation under age of 30. In addition, in 2013, he was named to the top 30 conservatives under the age of 30 in the United States, a list by Red Alert Politics. Senator Antani has received the Legislator of the Year award by MWET's Department of Ohio for his work helping veterans, as well as the Friends of Community Colleges award by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges, and the Distinguished Government Service Award by the Ohio Association of Career Colleges and Schools for his work for the betterment of higher education for the middle class. Senator Antani received 2018 Making a Difference Award from the Miami-Valley Down Syndrome Association for his work helping people with disabilities. He was also most recently awarded NFIB Ohio's 2020 Guardian of Small Business Award, which is awarded annually to one member of the Ohio House and one member of the Ohio State. A little bit about his background. He grew up in Miami Township in Ohio. He attended the Miamisburg City School and is a graduate of Miamisburg High School. He's a strong conservative. He's a member of the NRA and he volunteered Region Right to Life. He's also a member of the Rotary Club of Miamisburg. He's the second vice president of Miami High School Alumni Association and a former executive board member of the nonprofit Dayton International Festival, which is a very famous annual festival of various ethnic and nationalities in Dayton, Ohio. He chaired the Ohio Republican Party Asian Pacific American Advisory Council and serves on the national board of the Republican State Leadership Committee's Future Majority Project. He has appeared on various TV shows, including Fox News, MSNBC, PBS NewsHour, CNBC, C-SPAN, and Chuck Todd's radio show. He has appeared on Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and various NBC National News articles. He lives in Miamisburg, Ohio, and we are very glad that Senator Antani is able to join us despite his very busy schedule on this topic of managing India-U.S. defense relations. So we will start the program with the senator giving his opening statement and remarks for around 15 minutes or so. After senator's opening statement and remarks, he and I will have a brief discussion. And after that, we will be open to questions from the audience. And I see that we have a large number of people joining us. So it's all yours, Senator Antani. Welcome back again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Adityanji, for having me and for everyone for attending. It's truly an honor. Sorry for being a few minutes late. I was having a minute of a technical difficulty. Very happy to be here and for everything that the organization does. I really do appreciate it. As Dr. Adityanji said, I've had the honor of serving in the Ohio General Assembly for the past 6 years, first as a state representative and now as a state senator. It's truly an honor for me to be the first Indian American state senator in Ohio history and the youngest Indian American elected official in the country. And so, truly very, very happy to be here. Let me start by just maybe talking about, my beliefs of why, the U.S.-India relationship is important and why, we, as the diaspora, have a role in that. Obviously, as a state official, I'm not, yet directly involved in, U.S.-India relations in defense or elsewhere, but as one of, probably 25 Indian American elected officials in the country, I am intimately, familiar with everything that is going on. The Indian American community is very sort of unique in that, we have a strong, diaspora with, frankly, ties to, the country from whence we came. If you look at, other ethnicities or diasporas, some may, but most, do not have that, strong tie, back to sort of their native country. I think that we are sort of unique in that. And frankly, as Indian Americans, I think we have a duty, not necessarily to India, but to the United States to advance the U.S.-India relationship. As Indian Americans, we know the advantage of a relationship with India. When you really look across the world, there are few countries. There are few countries who have the real relationship but that the U.S. and India do. If you think about it, there are really not that many democracies in the world. Anytime I give a speech on this subject, I think it's important to note that while the United States is the world's oldest democracy, India is the world's largest democracy. In fact, when we talk about, elections, we just had one here in the United States. Running an election in India is much more difficult than it is in America. You're talking about 1.1 billion people. In fact, I read a New York Times story the last time there was an election in India where, they would take voting machines, through the jungles in East India, so just that a village of 10 people could vote, right? That is, I think, an amazing, sort of, testament to democracy. And so the question is why should the U.S. and India have a relationship? I think that the primary reason is because of our shared values. India, Israel are only a few countries that are truly democratic in being a democracy, that are pluralistic, that advance freedoms and liberties for their people. India is one of them. The U.S. is the other. Israel perhaps is the only other. And so, advancing relationships is very important. So in the defense space, why would we sell a country who is not a friend fighter jets? Would we not rather sell them to a nation that shares our values? I would propose that we sell them to a nation that shares our values. The second reason then, and the third, and so on and so forth, become more practical in nature, right? When we look at the greatest threat to mankind right now, which is radical Islamic terrorism, the U.S. and India share a special bond. And I think it's important to say radical Islamic terrorism because that's what it is. And the U.S. and India have both, unfortunately, seen the direct effect of radical Islamic terror. The Mumbai terror attacks, I had a cousin who was at the train station and fled the train station while it was under attack from the radical Islamic terrorists. And so we have a mutual interest in fighting a common enemy. And so where the U.S. and India can collaborate and facilitate cooperation in the defense area, it is in our mutual interest. The third reason is India is in a very precarious part of the world. Separating out from radical Islamic terror, China is not a friend of the United States. India is actually quite close to Russia when you look at it from a worldwide perspective. Is not a friend. Russia is not a friend to the United States. Afghanistan and Pakistan, of course, are in turmoil. Iraq is in turmoil. And so when you look at the region of the world that India sits, we need a friend. We don't necessarily want a friend. We need a friend. And India is that friend. And so, it is within our values, it is within our mutual interest, and it is in our regional strategic interest. And so, anything we can do to increase that cooperation is extremely, extremely important. I'm a Republican, so, I am concerned about President Biden and sort of his past comments and, attitudes towards, internal matters in India, such as the abrogation of Article 370, such as the passage of CAA. And so I think that, we have to, be very vigilant. But we as the diaspora have to be the ones to make that argument to Joe Biden and his administration. And so I think that's very important. So, so thankful to be here. Thank you for having me, and very happy to take questions.
We are very happy and indeed very delighted to have you with us, Senator Antani. I think you have set the tone very rightly that both of us are democracies, India and United States, and Indian diaspora has not only responsibility to India, but also the country in which they are residing, that is the United States. And it would be a win-win situation if India-U.S. defense relationship and India-U.S. relationship, goes to a higher level. It is also true that these two countries are really battling the radical Islamic terrorism. Both these countries have witnessed terrorist acts on their land masses. India much earlier, United States starting with 9/11, and prior to that, the first attack on World Trade Center in 1993. So we have shared experiences and shared values and shared aspirations because both of us are democratic countries. And also the fact that a part of world where the terrorism is raging and there is so much of instability, India sits there. And India has been a net security provider in that region. So it makes sense, for the cause of global prosperity, global trade, global commerce, international, sort of peace and prosperity, that India and United States work in whatever forum together, advancing the interests of humanity. And yes, sometimes there are, changes in administration leading to change in policy. And you have very rightly said that it is the responsibility of Indian diaspora in the United States to take the message to the President Biden's administration that friends don't interfere in the domestic lives of other friends. Let India handle its own democratic process. India is a very large democracy with a very vibrant, press, democratic system, human rights organizations. So India can maintain its own, internal order, utilizing its own common law, its judicial system, and United States does not need to bother about that. What we need to focus on is the relationship between these two countries so that we can avoid further terroristic incidents. We can promote democracies in countries like Myanmar, where both of these countries are concerned about the military coup and, maintaining free and open sea lanes of commerce, whether that is in South China Sea or in the Gulf of Aden. I think both our countries, United States and India, are, trading countries. Our lives depend upon international trade. And if certain sea, lanes of commerce are occupied by force or are blocked in some manner, that concerns the lives of our citizens of our two countries. So hopefully, with your greater profile right now at the state Senate level, but possibly as one of the very few elected Indian American young public official, I think you will take up this subject and possibly, work according to the aspirations of our community and take a higher profile and higher leadership in promoting US and India bilateral relationship as well as defense relationship.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, this is Dr. Balaji. A two-part question, so that you know that I'm not biased. I've been a registered Republican, registered Democrat, and right now a registered Independent. The two-part question is this: when you said that the largest democracy being India, they went with a computer thing to just get 10 people get voted for the democracy, which is great. What do you think of the present, particularly in the Republican states? It's exactly the opposite, trying to prevent certain section of the people, making them harder to vote. That's my first question. Second question is, when you made a comment of being concerned of Biden's thing, overall, the only reason India, I've been in this country now for 52 years, the overall move of India towards Russia was because in the past, the many administration from this country, more so often from the Republican time, were giving, assistance to Pakistan over India because India being a democratic country and they had to move to Russia. So I would like you to answer some of the questions if you can.
Sure, no, absolutely. I appreciate it. On the first question, I would say that, when I describe the commitment to democracy, um, you know, standing up a polling location is what any democracy should do. Obviously it presents special challenges in India, but it presents special challenges here depending on what part of the country that you're in. But some of these fights over the voting laws around the country, look, there's still mail-in voting. They're not cutting out mail-in voting. They're not sort of shrinking necessarily the opportunity to vote. I mean, this battle over drop boxes has become very political, and the unfortunate part is that it's become, all of these voting laws have become very, very political. Democrats want to expand voting in areas where their base is, and Republicans want to not allow that to happen. And that is the essential fight. It's a partisan fight, quite frankly, that really is very unfortunate in my opinion. On the second issue, I understand, but I would say I don't know that it's a partisan issue. Barack Obama did not have a good relationship with Narendra Modi. Joe Biden has said repeated things in complete defiance of the Indian government when the Indian government's asks have been to be just neutral on internal matters. And so, sure, has every Republican president had a good relationship with India? No, the answer is no, of course not. But George W. Bush did in modern history, right? George W. Bush did with the nuclear deal. President Trump did, quite frankly, probably had one of the better relationships with India of any president. But what I do know is that in recent history, of our last, four presidents, George W. Bush and President Trump had an excellent relationship, and Barack Obama and Joe Biden have had a cold one. I don't even know if Joe Biden's called Narendra Modi yet. I don't know if anyone else knows, but the latest I understand is that he hasn't even called him. The world's largest democracy, and the president of the United States hasn't even called the president.
Pardon me, with due respect, two things is, no, they have had a call together. I know.
That's great.
And the second one is, if you really see in the past, as I said, I've been following the thing for more than 50 years, the sanctions against India were imposed more by the Republican president in the past.
Yeah, I understand, but look, I mean, I guess we can reach back 70 years if we want.
I don't want to say Republican.
I've only been alive 30 years, so I only have the knowledge of the last 30 years, quite frankly. But look, on the first thing, I'm glad that they had a call. I did not know that, because all I remember is reading in the Times of India and in India Abroad how there wasn't a call. right? So I'm glad that that took place. Took him a little bit too long, which is shameful and unfortunate. But I'm glad they eventually had a call. But I would like to think that Joe Biden would have made India a little bit more of a priority instead of waiting for as long as he did. And then on the other issue, look, again, I was not around, prior to Bill Clinton, and so my knowledge of that is from the history books. And you're right. I'm not disputing what you said, but all I know is recent history. And I'm not living in the 1970s. I live in 2021, and I am troubled by President Biden's sort of cold relationship with India. And look, I was, I was critical of President Trump when it comes to H-1B visas. I was critical of President Trump when it comes to chain migration. I was critical of Republican presidents when it comes to the relationship just as much as Democrat. But my point is not Democrat or Republican. My concern is with Joe Biden.
Excellent answer, Senator Antani. My request to any future questions would be not to focus on US's domestic politics, because we all know that there have been some contentious elections. Let's focus on the topic at hand, managing India-US defense relationship, so that we can more focus on the topic of bilateral relationship rather than the contentious domestic politics of United States. I'm pretty sure Senator Antani will be able to answer all the questions, but that should not be the focus of discussion today. So we are open to
next, Adityanji. Okay, hi, I'm Senator Antani. It's such a delight speaking with you, Dr. Shobha Chokalingam from the greater Chicago area. And you sound like a seasoned senator. What can I say? And you're definitely, you say you've not even been around for more than 3 decades. That's hard to believe. But I want to focus on about 2 or 3 things in the bucket list. One is, it's very refreshing to see you call Islamic radical terrorism as it is, and fearlessly so, because the cancel culture is looming so badly that we're not even able to. I was in DC on 9/11. I know what it was, and we had to wait for a car to drive all the way back to Detroit. So I know what terror is, and I have a PTSD from it every 9/11. I'm not kidding, but
Wow.
Yeah, because what do you think? How do you think? Because India has never invaded any country. We have Pakistan, we have China, and how do you think we can? How did you think we came where we are, and how do you think we should move in the future? Because the Quad, I'm sorry to say, I mean, they're now the speech is, even though we had the recent visit by our US, I think I forget the name, but he went to meet everybody in India. But they say the Quad, the US India part of the Quad, may be the weakest link after the administration change, is what I'm told. Australia, Japan, they're aligned. So now with the S-400 issues looming very large, how are we going to bypass that? Do you think there is a caucus working on it so that matter shouldn't be a thing of contention between the two democracies? Number one. What about the trade relations between the two countries? Why? I would like to know why China, with all the COVID, and I'm a physician, I took care of dying patients with COVID, intubated, and I've seen husbands sign DNR for the wives, children losing parents, grandmas. But yet, when I go to Walmart, Target, everywhere, there's made in China goods. Why are we not holding them to accountability? The American folks, all innocent, naive American folks are affected. Nobody seems to be bothered about it with the change in administration. And the third one, I know Dr. Adityanji mentioned, but I really, really, one main reason was I wanted to definitely talk to you, through this meeting. I was very delighted, but the Hindu community of America is really on edge, and Hindu phobia is raising its ugly head day by day. I want to know what you would want to do. How can you help us spearhead with a team? How do we tackle this for us and the generations later on? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the questions, and very incredible story that you were there on 9/11, and very sorry to hear that. I may have to ask you to repeat 1 or 2 of the questions, but I'll try to remember them all. Let me start with again, just the U.S. India relationship. Look, I am worried, right? I am worried. I know the idea of, the Quad or whatever we want to, whatever fancy name we want to call it, but I think that we have to look for results, right? And so the question is Chinese aggression contained, or is Chinese aggression not contained, right? I mean, that is a relatively sort of easy metric to result, and I don't know that we know the answer to that. So look, I'm going to wish for the best, right? I hope it works. I want it to work. I hope that it does, but I think that we have to hold out judgment until. Can you repeat the other question for me?
After that, I wondered, first the direction of the Quad, but after that, the trade relationships. Why are we?
Yes, yeah. Look, and this is another area. I was very hopeful that President Trump would deliver on a trade deal, and he was unable to. That to me was disappointing, and I was critical of him for that. But I think I'm now hopeful that President Biden will. But certainly, unfortunately, it seems that it's been put to the back burner the past couple of years, and I think hopefully we will see that remedied.
And the Hindu phobia issue, and how do we
Yeah.
tackle radical Islam? How do we tackle the whole thing?
Yeah, luckily, I mean, I really don't think there's a lot of Hindu phobia. So Pew Research Foundation does a annual poll, an annual survey on Americans' attitudes towards religion, and obviously high positivity for Christianity, for Judaism, a low, high negativity rather for Islam. Hinduism is actually very neutral. Americans don't have a positive or negative view of Hinduism. It's also the least known religion. Only 26% of Americans feel like they know anything about Hinduism. And so for me, it's less about how to combat any Hindu phobia that exists. It's more about is how do we bump that number up? How do we get more positivity for Hinduism? How do we get more Americans to know what Hinduism is? That is really the discussion I think we should be having.
Can we do like a no Hinduism day in the Senate? Because there is an Islam day in the Senate. Can we do a Hinduism day in the Senate?
Yeah, I mean, we could. I don't know that is really it creates awareness. I mean, I'm a believer that we should be doing substantive things. What we really should be doing is regulating how world religions are taught in schools, right? And making sure that Hinduism is taught well in schools. An awareness day, that's fine. We could do it, but it really won't do much. What we really need to focus on is how is Hinduism presented to school children.
So, thank you, Dr. Shobha. Before we go to the next questioner, I'm going to ask a supplementary question that was briefly mentioned by Dr. Shobha. Between India and U.S., there's a strong possibility that Biden administration may impose sanctions on India under the domestic law, which is called CATSA. India and Russia have already negotiated a deal for India to buy the S-400 missile defense system. And under the US law, the law was enacted somewhere around 2018. This deal had already been negotiated. India should be given a waiver rather than sanction. So now the danger is that if Joe Biden administration takes a very bureaucratic approach and sanctions India, that will bring back India-U.S. relationship in general and India-U.S. defense relationship back by 2 decades. India was the most heavily sanctioned country by United States. It's only after President Bush 43rd administration that sanctions were slowly lifted against India. So we are entering an era when India again stands being sanctioned by the United States. And there is a lot of apprehension in Indian American community because we worry about India-US relationships, that Biden administration needs to be guided and needs to be guided with a strong dose of warning that sanctioning India using CATSA for buying the missile defense system from Russia is going to be counterproductive because India is actually being sandwiched by two nuclear neighbors. And we had this problem with China that's still persisting. So I think the concern the community is expressing to you that as a young elected leader of the community, maybe you should actually take more interest on this issue of sanctions and work proactively at the national level so that we can avoid sanctions against India.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And I guess, my only, retort would be, why is India buying a missile system from Russia? They should be buying it from us, right? And, that I believe, should be the focus that, we should be the defense partner with India and not Russia. And I think that's a failing, of our government.
And that is very true. And I can tell you that in 2008, US sold $0 worth of arms and military equipment to India because India was sanctioned. At this point in time, United States is the fourth largest defense exporter to India. Having said that, the historical situation probably will not change overnight, and the responsibility for this situation lies with successive US administrations, whether Democratic or Republican. So to penalize India at this stage, when India is buying $15 billion worth of defense equipment, would be counterproductive to the relationship. And that's the point we need to make, because overnight, India's defense supply and the equipment is not going to change to United States. India buys the largest amount at this point in time from Russia, the second largest amount from France, third largest amount from Israel, and fourth largest amount of defense equipment from the United States. So there is a role for US to grow. There is a role for US-India co-production of defense equipment, and all that is fine. And these relationships are nurtured over a period of time, and it does not happen overnight. So we have to continue to nurture the relationship while not sanctioning India, because India is in this predicament that you are facing aggression from China. You need something to deter the missile attacks.
Completely understand, and definitely something to work through.
I'm glad that you have taken that, pledge with us that you will work towards it.
Do you think it's time to have like a lobbying committee group of the lobbying? See, Raja Krishnamurti, the Democrat, the Samosa caucus that they call, he's a Democrat, of course, but we're all part of folks who've changed, have become Republican since the last election. But, do you think we can have a caucus for this matter? It seems to be very...
Raj is a good friend, and I think Raj has done well. Unfortunately, some of the others have joined the Pakistan caucus and have sort of advocated for policies that fly in the face of the U.S.-India relationship, which has been very, very disappointing. But, look, there is an India caucus in Congress. Many members of both parties are part of it. But, look, I think that we as the diaspora, have a duty to bolster that. And so, I think that, we have a duty as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we are open to another question.
Yes, I have a comment. Is that okay?
I guess that's fine. Keep it brief, please.
Elections have consequences. And the thing is that before the election, Biden had made a lot of statements which were pro-Pakistani and anti-Indian. And it's a known fact. Kamala Harris has been known, and she said that we are keeping a close watch on India and the Kashmir issue. So, I mean, Biden is just doing what he said he would do. And a close advisor to Biden is a Pakistani. So you know where that is going from. And the problem is this Hindu bashing. I don't think it is. I think it is mostly because of the efforts of CAIR, Council of Islamic in American Islamic Relations, and they are doing all this in various cities to have resolutions passed in the various cities. And how can we blame local population when we have the representatives like Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna who are pronouncedly anti-Indian? I mean, so Trump was a good friend, and the thing is that the Indian community, 80% vote Democratic. So elections have consequences.
I think I should just let you take over as the speaker. I have nothing else to
add. Well, I guess again, we should not go back to the US elections of 2020. Let's focus on US-India relationship because that's the topic for today. Let's find if anyone else has questions on US-India defense relationship. Okay, Dr. Shobha, we can't hear you.
Okay, unmute. Okay, how do you think we can bolster this relationship? See, for example, I was requesting we should have 5 US-India centers across the country so that we can do like a soft India-US conclaves where we invite the defense experts of both countries and then have them engage. Because, I mean, and also culturally, I would like to see us more into the mainstream because there's a PF Chang's, there is a Taco Bell, but we don't have an Indian equivalent of the food. You know what I mean? It starts like a chain. And we want to do more of that. How do you think we can? And I really want to take your input, Senator, because the next generation and anyone who might want to intern at your office, I think you would be wonderful. You're outspoken about the issues that are right now. I kind of represent the passion and the seething anxiety that our Hindu Americans have across the country. How can we channelize it? How, we want to support people like you to represent us. And I would like to, we need to do fundraisers for you, make more of our Indian community, American community know about you. How can we go about doing that? I think that's important because this is what we want. And you would be kind of, inspiring, I think, younger generations, other folks to come into, lawmaking.
No, I greatly appreciate it. And on the example of PF Chang's, soft power is definitely, very important, but I would argue we have it. I think we have it through Indian restaurants and Indian physicians. I like to tell, a story that when I first went door to door in 2014 for my first election, people would notice, obviously, that I'm Indian. My district is significantly Caucasian. And, the questions I got were fine. They would ask me, they'd say, hey, do you know Dr. Patel? And I'd be like, yeah, of course I know Dr. Patel. Well, there's 20 Dr. Patels in Dayton, Ohio. They'd say, do you know Dr. Gupta? Of course I know Dr. Gupta. And then I'd say, they'd stop me and say, hey, I have an important question for you. Do you like Amar India or Jew India? Which are the 2 Indian restaurants in Dayton? And so, I would argue that, the soft power is there. The question is how do we, turn that into support for the U.S.-India relationship, something that, we should absolutely do. Obviously very much appreciate the support. I've received great support, from the Indian community. Would love to stay, in touch. My, Dr. Adityanji's got my info and I'm at, Niraj.Antani at gmail.com or, please do, keep in touch.
That's awesome. Thank you. Dayton, are you from Dayton? Ramesh G from the Mandir. I used to, go there, and Dayton, I know quite a few there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I am in Dayton.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Let's focus on another question. We have 10 more minutes left. We've closed sharp at 9 p.m. Any more question? Yes, Mr. Parsha.
Thank you. Thank you, Niraj. Good to see you again. You spoke at our Friends of India meeting last October.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and regarding India-U.S. defense relationships, as we all know that, India is trying to second find role in Afghanistan, sending exports to Iran. So what's the role of India when U.S. pulls out? And what role do you see it there? Fill the vacuum? How do you see it?
Well, I think that there's the difference between what I believe the United States should do and what we're doing, right? So I think, cutting and running from Afghanistan like Joe Biden is doing is wrong. The region is still a powder keg. Not, having, troops there is wrong. I think that, we don't need necessarily, to occupy the country, but, not having a military base, I think shows weakness for us. And so I think that, it's hard for me, I think, to answer that question because, what I believe we should do is not necessarily what I think we would do.
I agree with you on that. As a military family, why not have United Nations peacekeeping force there? Republicans push for that.
Yeah, look, I am not a fan of the United Nations. I don't think they've done, what they were meant to do. We really, when you give China and Russia veto power over anything, it's going to be problematic. There's another philosophy out there called a concert of democracies that, really what we need is not the United Nations, but rather a concert of democracies. And that's frankly what I believe in.
Good job. Thank you.
And in fact, very recently, Richard Haas has written in Foreign Affairs magazine on concert of democracy, which includes India definitely along with the European Union. So
not only does it include India, but India would probably be among the leaders.
Yes.
Awesome.
Any more questions to Senator Antani?
I have a quick question. When is the President Trump coming out from Mar-a-Lago? I was at the Don Jr. book release in New York, but I want to know, is he launching a new party? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, I hope he's not launching a new party. He said he's not. I mean, the Republican Party is the party that he belongs to and should belong to, and I belong to. But look, I don't know that he's running again. We don't know, right? We don't know.
Oh.
Let's not talk about domestic politics again. As the moderator and host, I have to remind our audience that this is not about domestic politics. Since nobody is asking about managing India-U.S. defense relationships,
quick question.
I think Mr.
Can I ask a
Sridhar,
question?
I think Sridhar Nair has a question.
You want me to speak or you can?
Yes, go ahead and speak.
Okay. So Senator Antani, thank you for coming for this event. We really appreciate it, and we heard about you in many forums, and thank you so much. What do you think has happened when United States have become the fourth largest military hardware supplier to India? What do you think would be the reason? Is it because of the unpredictability of the relationship, or is it because of the changing priority of the administration's approach towards the defense partnership with India?
Yeah, I think that is a very actually good question. I'm frankly not sure. I mean, look, I think that, our leaders need to sell America, right? And that means selling America to, to India, to everywhere, right? And so, I think that is very important. But I think that, is a great question, for our federal administration, but not one I know the answer to.
Quick question, follow-up question, and I will stop after that. What do you think your office can do to educate the American lawmakers, both in the Senate and the Congress? Why did U.S. became the fourth largest defense partner, even below Israel?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What do you think would be the reason, and what can your office do to educate the Senate and the Congress on the unpredictability of the relationship might have caused this downward trend? How do you how do you think that your office can help in educating both Senate and Congress?
Yeah, so obviously I am a state official, but between us, anytime there's outreach done to me to sort of talk to the federal delegation in Ohio, I do that. Following CAA, the passage of CAA, I was able to educate our Republican members of Congress in Ohio that hey, we don't, you really just, can you not put out statements? Just no statement is better than a statement. And after the abrogation of 370, similar things of helping them understand and, connecting the ambassador of India to these different members of Congress. And that's something I do fairly regularly.
So any more questions before we close? I would wait for people who have not asked any questions rather than people asking a repeat question. Anyone attending this who has not asked a question, this is your last chance to ask.
This is Line Hina. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi,
please go ahead.
I'm Hina from Chicago. I wanted to say you're doing excellent job. And what I heard today, your speech first time, but I know some of my families in Ohio and over then they voted for you and they speak very highly about you. And what I want to know is second and third generation in getting involved in Indo-USA. So what would you suggest them to make this bridge stronger and stronger? Yes, first generation worked very hard, but now second and third generation, how can we get them involved and make it more stronger and continue making small bridges in each state in the U.S. community and then get connect with the DC and India? I mean, we already have, but I'm pointing that for the second and third generation.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great question and something, as we get away from the immigrant generation, have to be very concerned about. But look, I think the most important thing is for Indian Americans of any age to have relationships with their members of Congress. It is not hard, frankly, to build a relationship with your member of Congress. And then when appropriate and when necessary to advocate to them for the U.S.-India relationship. And that is, they can go intern for their member of Congress. They can go work for their member of Congress. They can volunteer on their campaigns. And that, I think, is the easiest way.
Thank you.
Very nice. So we have 1 minute left. And I think Mr. Parsa has one more question. Mr. Parsa, very brief question. We are not able to hear you, sir. Mr. Parsa, we can't hear your question.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Niraj, you're doing an amazing job. Next door to you in Indiana, and 4 Indian families lost their life. But we would like to see some kind of statement from your office expressing condolences or sympathy to our Indian communities. It did not happen in Colorado. So
yeah. I actually reached out to the Sikh Coalition yesterday to put something together and SALDEF as well. And so I'm actively working on them with that.
We are going to Gurudwara next Sunday.
That's
a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be the last question because we are coming near to 9 p.m. Senator's time is very valuable. We appreciate your taking 1 hour time off from your busy schedule. We hope that we'll continue to have discussion, deliberation, dialogue with you. And we hope that you continue to work on issues that are very important to Indian Americans, as well as to the topic of today, India-U.S. defense relationships. I know working in Ohio Senate, that is not directly your role because this is federal government role. But I think the way you are going in your career, I think there will be a time that you might be in the national spotlight. And I think we would like you to start, taking some interest in these issues. So we again thank you very much for the time and your thoughtful discussion on the topic and answering questions and answers. We must say that we are very delighted and we are very honored to have State Senator Antani here. And we hope you continue to do good for our own community, but as well as for mainstream America and for furthering India-U.S. relationship. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaste.
Good night. Bye.
Adityanji, I know I was chatting away. Sorry about that. I was so delighted.